heard Azita talking about her adventure. When we went to see the film Nomadland, we thought about Azita. Yes. But anyway, as we know, the clinging is not to the amount of possessions around, but the cheetah and the cheetah seekers and different accumulations. Mm.
Well, I was thinking about that this morning, in that for the last 5 months, my life's been fairly chaotic, but the what I think is the one stable thing is the Dhamma. I mean, no matter how chaos it is, there's still only seeing and hearing, tasting, smelling, the 5 senses, and 6 senses. So that's the stable.
Yes.
Although that's that, as we know, that's impermanent, but certainly the Zoom has been great, and so reading, yeah.
No matter how life goes, as you say, the realities are the same, and understanding continue developing. And
yeah,
for sure.
All gone, for sure, in split seconds.
Yeah.
Yes, Achan, it is, and that's why I think it's been the stableness in my current life, even though it falls away. But the truth is it's wonderful to have access to the Buddha's truth.
Because you see that before there can be more confidence of the truth, that actually there is nothing. Because whatever is there can be object of clinging instantly because of ignorance. That's why no matter what, the truth, the absolute truth, is no I, no one, no thing at all. It's only that which is conditioned to be the loka, to be the world, which arise and fall away instantly, succeedingly, all the time. So this is true, so true, that only Panya can begin to understand that actually there is only just one reality appears at a time. Only one. But now, see, so many things. That's why we have to have confidence of the truth, that before there can be the confidence of no one in no self, there must be the understanding of a reality, just one, because that one cannot be taken for anything at all. It has to be just as it is, by conditions only. And then gone all the way, all the time, no matter in what life. Last life, this life, future life, exactly the same. So dark with ignorance, not understanding that actually there is nothing, only that which is not self, conditioned to arise and then falls away all the time. Without understanding, it's impossible to have it never to arise again, because it's useless. What for? Just from nothing and then something and then no more at all. What for? For attachment, when there's no understanding. Only that. So life is just fight for pleasant feeling all the time from life to life, and it brings dukkha, not just the arising and falling away, but not understanding the truth, clinging to that will condition dukkha because it's not there anymore, no matter by way of panjati or by absolute truth. Even right now, it's just that, covered up with ignorance all the time, until there is a little more understanding from hearing, considering, beginning to let go. But so very little, because so much attachment to that which is always something all the time.
It's like we're either clinging to any pleasant feeling there is or looking for it. Always searching for it.
I've heard you say, Ajahn, the path must go along with detachment. It must be detachment from the beginning. But the beginning, I mean, we don't know when we first heard the truth, but the detachment from the beginning seems really difficult. Well, almost impossible because of so much attachment. I mean, everything we do, it's attachment. Well, it's not like attachment is there all the time, because in my situation, there's a lot of dosa as well as ignorance. But detachment from the beginning seems like a really difficult thing.
Because we have to understand, as you said, so much attachment to everything. Excuse me. So how can there be just a little bit of what can be letting go from the very beginning? Not attachment of everything, or from dosa, or from whatever you wouldn't like to have it, but attachment to the idea of self, ignorance, not understanding it just right now. And when there's the understanding from hearing, considering, is it true? Nothing is permanent at all. It's there only much shorter than we can imagine, and then it's gone. And from hearing this, it detached from taking it for permanent thing, little by little, at moment of understanding. That's why before anything, everything can be letting go. There must be letting go from just one characteristic, like as the attachment to the idea of self, that is so deeply rooted. That's why from the word no one, is it true? Because that which is seen cannot be taken for anything, because without seeing, it cannot appear at all. It cannot be anything like people from seeing and thinking about the nimitta of that. See, no understanding of the arising and falling away so very rapidly of whatever is now, just like that. That's why the letting go from the idea of, I think that there must be I all the time, or someone like God or anything, people and things, but actually that's only thinking. Without thinking, can there be such thought, idea? How come? Without moment of seeing, not understanding it. So it's something, because the succession of the arising and falling away always appears as it is, as something. But in truth, actually, it's nothing, because it's gone. Everything is gone. Secretly, all the time, unknown. In one's life, long, long time ago, many, many lives ago. And it is added and added each moment of ignorance. So letting go is letting go ignorance, which hasn't heard about the truth, and begin to consider whether this is right. When it's right, it can be understood clearer and clearer until just one reality appear as it is, but only to direct awareness and direct understanding. Otherwise, it's useless, because now hardness appears as hardness, no understanding, and it's gone unknown, and taking it for something instantly, all day, all time. See, that's why even letting go of the wrong understanding is so very subtle, because without understanding it's impossible. So understanding has to be more and more, greater and greater, deeper and deeper, more confidence that it can let go better and better, more and more. Strong enough to let go the idea of self from that which is now appearing. But when there's no understanding, it cannot appear as just only one nimitta of a reality, like only that which is seen, which can be seen. Without seeing, it cannot appear at all. So it's so very natural. The understanding is there. The understanding from hearing, so there can be more hearing, considering, more understanding, more letting go by understanding. At that very moment of understanding, that which is now appearing, little by little, until it is more precise to understand just one reality at a time.
And Azita, when you say that the detachment at the beginning is so hard, but I think that it's just referring to a moment of understanding. When there's a moment of understanding, there is detachment, no attachment at that moment. There is letting go. So it's not anything different from just understanding for a moment and then gone. And that's the way that detachment develops with understanding from the very start. And at those moments of understanding, no chaos at all, no thought about all the mess and all the disturbance in life. So it's just a moment of understanding with detachment, and then afterwards clinging as usual. So it develops from the beginning with understanding.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. That's put a slightly different slant on where I was going before, because I was thinking, well, it must start with detachment, but that feels like a me trying not to be attached. But with, my mind now goes back to when I first heard Pa Allen talk about Nama and Rupa, and that really stuck in my mind. And so that's a little bit of, I guess, very intellectual understanding starting back then. And so, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Yeah.
And every moment of awareness that occurs is a beginning in itself. So when Ajahn says it has to be detachment from the beginning, and then she says it begin again. So it's just another way of saying that when there is awareness and understanding, there is detachment also. So there's no need to have detachment in order for there to be understanding.
And when we, like you said, begin to hear about namas and rupas, there's a little bit of detachment developing with the understanding that there is no self, no one there. There are just these different kinds of realities, those that are experiencing and those that cannot experience anything. So gradually, there's just a little more detachment developing with the understanding that there are just dharmas, nothing else at all. So it develops with the understanding.
And just this morning, I found the sutta, and I'm hoping I'm not going to mix suttas up this time. So I've marked it. It's the Chaka Sutta, the 6 sets of 6. And it's quite incredible. I mean, I only got into the first page. May I read out this little section? Is that okay with everyone?
Go ahead, Azita.
Okay, it's the 6 internal bases should be understood. The 6 external bases should be understood. The 6 classes of citta should be understood. The 6 classes of contact, phassa, should be understood. The 6 classes of feeling should be understood. And the 6 classes of craving should be understood. So when I read that, sometimes the suttas are stories to me, but when I read that this morning, I just sat for a while and I don't know, I guess I was thinking about it, but I haven't read the whole sutta, but I found that that's telling us what should be known. And that's happening now. Those 6 sets of 6 are happening right now.
And that is the whole world too.
Exactly, yes. Yes, despite what goes on in the whole world, it is just that in reality. Yeah.
So it's just like what we say now. See, the six, inner and outer, is there now to be known. And it has to be known. Otherwise, there must be ignorance and attachment because of it does not show up as it is, as it's there, as only that, which is the sixth and the sixth.
And just one question on the bases, the vatus. Like eye base in Pali is Chaku Pasada. So is mind base then called Hadaya Pasada?
We have to understand each word of the Buddha. When he used the word pasada, it is a kind of rupa, which is special, different from the hardness and softness and other rupa, because it can be that which the object can be impinged on it only, because it cannot impinge on the hardness. See, hardness is hard, nothing there, but there is a different rupa, special one, who has such different characteristic that only that can be, that the object, particular one, can impinge on it. For example, the eye, the Jakupasata, see, it cannot be changed to other thing. But when we talk about the Vara, it is different from when we talk about Vatu. Because when we talk about the Vara, it means the doorway for Chitta to experience that which impinges on it. So it performs the function of the Vara, or it is the Vara at that very moment. But does Chitta arise? See, there must be the Rupa which Chitta arises at, because in the plane of five khandas, all Chittas have to arise at one particular Rupa. That's why there are six Vatu for the place of the birthplace, or where it arises, and the Vara for that it's that which it can depend on that to experience an object. Otherwise, that without the Vara, without that Rupa, nothing impinges on it. How can Chitta arises to experience just that object which impinges on that Rupa? See, so there are two meanings: the Vara, six, and the Vatu, six as well, but different ones. For the Vara, there are six: Jakku Pasata, Sota Kana Chiwha Pasata, and Hathiya Vatu. As Vatu, the place, the birthplace of Chitta, on where that Chitta arises, it has to be on or at Arupa. So birth consciousness arises with the Vatu. They arise together as Anya, Manya, Pajaya, Sahachata, Pajaya, only that moment. And then the Chitta falls away, but the Rupa lasts for longer than that. See? And at that very moment of birth, Chitta and Cetasika arises at the Hatayavatu. It is not the Vara, but it is the place or the point or the Rupa which Chitta has to arise at it, because it has to arise at a Rupa in the body. So that is Vatu. So Chitta arises at a Rupa all the time from birth to death, and at the first moment of life, it arises at the Hathiya Vatu, which arises together, Sahachata and Anyamanya Pajaya. And the other moment, Puvanka Chitta, arises at Hataya Vatu as well. And the other Chitta, only 10 Chitta arises at the Jakku Pasata, Sota Pasata, Chiwha Pasata, Kaya Pasata, and Hataya Vatu. Other Chitta. That's why only seeing consciousness arises at the Jakku Pasata. And Jakku Pasata is the Vara for any Chitta which experiences that object, which still impinges on that object, only one, lasts for 17 moments.
And that term pasada, I believe, means sensitive. So the pasada rupas are each sensitive to impingement by a particular rupa. For example, the Jaku pasada rupa is sensitive to the impingement of visible object, and only that particular rupa. And likewise for each of the other 5 sense doors. But the Adiyawatu is not experiencing direct impingement by a rupa of any kind. So it's not termed a sensitive matter. It's just the base for the arising of the citta doesn't get impinged on by an external rupa.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So there's no Hadaya pasada, so to speak.
Pasada rupas.
But called, well, I think I've been confused about this particular heart base before, but anything that does not arise at the 5 sense doors arises at Hadaya.
Watu in the ground.
Hadaya Watu. So that's all subtle rupas, nibbana. Other jittas that aren't the sense objects, aren't the sense jittas, like seeing, hearing, and concepts. Anything else? Anything else?
Any citta other than the 10, the 5 pairs.
Right.
And the Hadiyawatu is never the dwara, so it's always the base for those cittas, but not the dwara.
Oh, okay.
That distinction being made.
Okay, I'm glad I'm recording this.
And the reason Ajahn mentioned at the first moment of life is because at every other moment, the Hadiyawatu has to have arisen prior to the arising of the citta, which arises at it. But at the first moment of life, the citta and the Hadiyawatu, both conditioned by karma, arise at the same instant and condition each other by mutual support and connaissance at that moment, both conditioned by karma, and they both condition each other. But after that, at every other moment, so the Bhavanga cittas that follow the birth consciousness that arise at the Hadiyawatu has already arisen because it lasts for 17 times as long as citta.
Thank
I
you.
mean, enough to understand what is meant by sensitive rupa. Please explain more about it.
A sensitive rupa, well, I understand the sensitive rupa is just the Chakku Prasada, Sota Prasada, the 5 sense
Object. No,
bases.
rupa, the 5 sense rupa.
Yeah, the 5 sense rupas.
We call it prasada rupa because it's the rupa, which is the only rupa which is special, different from other, because it has its own characteristic. Because I think that if we compare to the mirror, see, when we pass, there is something there appearing. But when we pass other thing, which is not as clear, transparent as that, no shape, no form, no shadow in it at all. So it's a kind of rupa which is just like the glass or the mirror or that which can be the object that only rupa can impinge on it. But I don't know the English word enough to explain. But it is special because it's different from hardness, softness, smell, taste, and every the other rupas.
Kanajan, I think in Pali it's sapatiga in Pali.
What does it mean?
this is like sapatiga. It means the rupa that is I would say impingent or coming in contact, sensitive to do it.
Lucas, I think you're getting confused there. The word sapatiga means impingement. That's different from pasada.
Oh yeah. I mean impingement. Yeah. That's what I meant. The 10 rupas are like that, isn't it? That's what I meant.
Well, I think what Ajahn is talking about is the word pasada.
Yeah, but the pasada are sapatiga, the characteristic of being impinged on.
No, I think you're getting confused there.
Oh, right. So okay. Just wanted to. Maybe I'm wrong. I just wanted to be. I thought this is it. You know.
I would say, and I haven't got my dictionary at the moment, because I can't look when I'm talking on here, on the mobile here. Facade, I think, is what Ajahn said. Maybe Ajahn, would you tell us what the Thai word is? Because often those Thai words are very similar to the Pali words. What is the Thai word for pasada rupa?
But
Please.
I don't think that the word can explain as much because it's the expression and it's the word. But the way it is the different rupa from other rupa, which has its characteristic as it can be that, which has its special quality that the object, like the visible object, can impinge on it, and sound can impinge on it, and smell can impinge on it. Different pasada rupa. Rupa, there cannot be any rupa which the other rupa can impinge on. That's why no citta to experience that. For example, seeing right now, no one knows about the Chakku Pasada Rupa, but there must be rupa, which the visible object can impinge on it. Only that particular one. Only. That's why each rupa is different because it has its own characteristic. But all of them cannot experience any object at all because it's not that which arises to experience, but it just arises to be as its quality, like hardness is hard, smell is smell, and so on. We just know that it's there, the 5 rupas, the pasada rupa, but does it appear? Even it is classified as rup is coarse, not fine like the other, but altogether there's 12 rupa, the 7 object and the 5 sense door is rup coarse because we can imagine, we can understand, we can know that there must be such rupa, even it does not appear. In daily life, there are only 12 rupa which appear all day, one by one at a time. Only 5, while there are more than just 7 rupa, which can be known by such citta, tvara. Only 7 rupas appear in a day, moment to moment, differently.
And if I could just add a word on Sapatiga Rupa, according to Yanatiloka, there is a classification of Apatiga and Sapatiga in the Abhidhamma. And Apatiga means not reacting, whereas Sapatiga refers to the physical sense organs, I'm reading now, as reacting or responding to sense stimuli, and also the physical sense objects as impinging or making an impact on the sense organs. All other corporeality is apatiga, non-reacting and non-impinging. So I think it's that sapatiga can be applied also to pasada rupa.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out, Jonathan. I think these are covered in Ajahn book at the back, right at the back there on her Ajahn book on Paramatta Dhammas, and I will check those again. But my understanding was that patika, which literally sapatika, which means those which knock up against. So, but anyway,
yes, it includes that.
I will check up on those
meaning,
again.
but also refers to the receiving, as it were, the receiving rupas.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I will recheck on that. Thank you.
To me, I think that we cannot get any understanding from the word, but the word can lead us to think over, reconsider the truth of what is there. For example, the Jakku Pasatarupa, I cannot find any word to fit the meaning of it because it's different, but as much as I can understand is that it is different from other rupas. Each one is different. And for these five Pasat Rupa, it is that which can be that which the Rupa can impinge on it to condition Chitta to arise at it there and experience the object which impinge on it. So the Jakku Vinyana arises at the eye base, which is the Jakku Pasata, while Jakku Pasata there is the doorway for Chitta, the Jakku Vinyana, to experience that which impinged on it. I don't know the word in Pali or any word in English and other language, but even in Thai, I just have it to lead me to consider, to understand the truth of it. And I don't think that there can be any word which can fit on the truth of it, as there can be the understanding of that at that very moment. No word. Because now there is seeing, and without Jakku Pasata, or that, even we don't call it Jakku Pasata, must be that which is there for that which now appear as visible object impinge on it. Otherwise, it cannot appear because that at the back or some other place does not impinge on it. So that cannot appear. And by way of sapatika or apatika, it comes later because it indicates that what reality can just impinge on it right there, or it has to do other function.
I think in English, Ajahn, the term sensitive, although of course strictly speaking there's no sense involved, but in the common usage of the term,
but
we
then
can
it
say
can be
that.
understood it's all right because no word can fit on the truth as it is, but it can lead to understand reality, which cannot be explained when it's there because it is directly experienced.
Yeah, Tanajan, what you were mentioning before about there's a note on the back of your book here on page 452, in the English translation that would be obviously Sapatiga rupas. They're the 12 rupas, namely the 5 Pasada rupas that are impinged on by the objects, and the 7 Visya rupas, the objects that impinge. And then you've got this other word, which we have looked at before, which I'm just trying to remember exactly what context we talked about, and that's the other ones, the other 16 rupas. So I apologize there to you, Lucas. You're absolutely right. Sapatiga rupas do include the Pasada rupas, as Jonathan also indicated.
I think the Pasada Rupas, it's referring to the sensory receptive element or the sensitive rupas that can receive just those particular rupas. But of course, it doesn't mean it can experience anything because it's a rupa. But only those 5 can be pasada rupas, because only those 5 are capable of being impinged on by those sense objects.
I think of it in terms of, we use the term receptor to indicate something that is sensitive in the conventional sense to another signal of some kind. So the pasada rupas are like receptors, each for a particular external rupa.
That's also a good medical terminology, Jonathan. Thanks.
Okay.
Can we say that the rupa is clear or dirty? See, because we cannot use any right word for anything as it is, so clearer than just the word that we can choose. But I think that it's that rupa which the object can impinge on it. It's for just one proper rupa. For the pasata rupa, jakupta, it is only that which can impinge on it, the visible object. And for the sota pasata, it's only that which can impinge on it, the sound, and so on. See, only that. That's why it's different from the other rupas. And without them, the world of sight and sound cannot appear at all. That's all we can know, because actually it cannot be touched, it cannot be seen, it cannot be smelled. Because of its character, it's just the quality that the other thing can impinge on it. The proper thing too. Only that. Very simple, I don't know. But just to understand that, we can use any word. It doesn't matter at all, whether it is sensitive or whether it's that or that, when it brings understanding of that. Clear, a little clearly that it is a rupa special, then different from other rupas, because hardness cannot have anything to impinge on it. The hardness, see, it's not the pasata rupa, but the kaya pasata rupa for hardness to impinge on it. Otherwise, citta cannot experience hardness. Just to understand this moment as a self in any language or in any word.
That is so precise, Ajahn. And now my next question is: there's the external rupa, and then there's the pasada rupa. What are the conditions that cause the impingement? Is that gamma or vipaka?
Now, what can be the vipaka? The rupa cannot be the vipaka.
And they're both rupa, aren't they? No, the vipaka has to be the jitta that arises at the pasada rupa. That's the vipaka jitta. What conditions the impingement of those two rupas?
We have to talk about different kinds of paccaya again. Because as one can know, nothing can arise without sankhara conditioning paccaya. Because you see that why we call that anything which arises as Sankhara-Dhamma, because it cannot arise alone. It has to arise with any other thing which condition it to arise. They just condition each other to arise. Can anyone change that? The way it is, Dhamma. That's why Dhamma is not Dhamma. Nobody can change, but can learn to understand the truth of it. That it is the way it is, Dhammata in Pali, Dhammada in Thai language, but it means the way it is. Nobody can change. Seeing cannot arise without Jakupasata. And what condition Jakupasata? Kamma. That's why we have to learn what condition such and such rupa. For prasad rupas, conditioned by karma. And for rupa, some is conditioned by kamma, some other chitta, some other by uttu, and some other by ahara. By conditions. That which is conditioned by karma cannot be conditioned by other thing. And that which is conditioned by chitta cannot be conditioned by other thing. And that which is conditioned by uttu cannot be conditioned by other thing. And that which is conditioned by ahara, karma does not condition it. Chitta cannot condition it. Uttu cannot condition it.
As far as I know, Azita, the condition you ask about is not really mentioned in the teachings. But the way I think of it is that there are multiple impingements occurring, but it depends on Dhamma, which one becomes the object of idol of the seeing consciousness. So not all visible objects that impinge then become the object necessarily of seeing consciousness. But I'm not sure if that's correct. Ajahn may have something to say about it.
I don't know the point. Kun Ashita asked about what is vipaka or what?
She asks what conditions the visible object to impinge on the Jakupasada Rupa.
Someone tell them? What? See? By conditions. Because you see that visible object arises for so many moments in a day. And it depends on karma to experience such object. That's why that object impinge on it. It doesn't mean that it has to impinge on it, but it's time for that to impinge on it. But I think that it's not the question, because it's like the universal question or doubt about that, unanswered at all. Because who can talk about each different moment or each different tiny reality? But one can see that why some people experience or see this and the other sees that. See, now Kun Ashita say something and I see different thing. Why different? Because visible object is just visible object, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. It doesn't matter because it cannot experience anything. But when it's time for vipaka to experience such unpleasant object by conditions, the object impinge on it. But nobody tell it that it's time for you to impinge on that. Everything comes by conditions because there can be moment that visible object impinge on that. See, there can be moment when the visible object impinge on that, and that is conditioned to be by what karma. When it's present object, it has to be the kusala vipaka which experience that. When the object is unpleasant, it's time for akusala vipaka to experience that. The way karma condition, the vipaka.
And the visible object, which if it's outside the body is conditioned by temperature, when it impinges on the eye sense, conditioned by karma, it also depends at what point of the lifespan of the visible object it impinges. If it's almost at the end of its lifespan, no conditions for karma to condition seeing to see it, because just some bhavanga cheetahs and then it's gone before there's a chance for seeing to see it. So many different conditions involved as to whether it's actually seen, and then whether as to which visible object is seen at that moment, depending on which karma.
This has been really helpful. So thank you so much. It's cleared up stuff, whether Sonia remembers, but it's been really, really helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Ajahn.
And the point is, it shows how not in anyone's control at all, just so many different conditions involved for this moment of seeing, for the coming together right now of seeing and the particular visible object that's seen at this moment.
Oh, precisely.
Impinged on the eye sense and then all gone.
Yes, and yet we still, because of accumulations and idea of me, we still go on during the day. As soon as this is finished, I'll be out there and it'll be me again by conditions.
Thinking about my chaos and
yes.
my problem lifestyle and so on. Yes. Same for everyone, back to the world of madness whenever there's no wise considering.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you.
Lucas, was there anything you would like to bring up today?
Sarah, actually, I have nothing on my mind for now. I will be listening, because the discussion is very, very helpful,
Good.
Maybe someone else have any points.
It's good that you're able to listen, Lucas. Appreciate it.
Ajahn, I don't know whether it was last week or the week before, but you asked, what is the body? And that was a very interesting and useful discussion, I think. And I thought about it somewhat afterwards, and really there isn't a body as we think of it. There are only various rupas that arise and fall away continually, which can be impinged upon by one of the 7 rupas. Is that making sense?
I think that we can talk about what Buddha said as before there is any house, there is only space. Is that right?
Yes.
And when a house is building up, it begins little by little. That's why what we take for the whole body is that which is conditioned to arise and falls away instantly all the time. But since they are together, we take the form of that as my body or just a house. But what is there in a house? So many, many things. That's why whatever does not arise at all is not there. That's why only that which has a reason is there and falls away. And this is the way the body is. Actually, there's no body at all. There are only different realities arising and falling away. Just when one citta arises, it experiences only one object. So it's there. And we take it for seeing. See, before seeing, there's no seeing. The house is not built up when there's not that. But when something is there arising and falling away, so very rapidly, it continues to be as appearing as a nimitta or something, because not understanding that even right now there's no body, but we take body for me. That's why there is kaya nupassana satipatthana, to really understand that actually what we take for body, none at all, no body. That's why no I, no belonging to me. The body does not belong to I because there's no I, there's no nothing at all. Only that which rises and falls away succeedingly, very rapidly, that it looks or seems like it's the whole body. But when there is touching, it's just a point, very, very tiny point is there. Nothing is there. Otherwise, there must be the idea of self uprooted very, very deep. That's why it cannot let go the idea of self so very soon or quick at all. It takes time from hearing, considering, but actually, when one hearing about no me, no thing, it really means that no one, no me, no thing at all. Only when something arises, it's there. But when it does not, or it hasn't arisen yet, where is it? Nothing at all. But there are conditions for anything to arise, and they arise very, very fast. They seem like to be together as one thing, my body. See, in order to eradicate the idea of self, there must be the understanding of no thing, because the panya, which has developed, let go other thing. At that moment, awareness is aware of just that one thing. And panya can begin to develop that other thing is not there. How can it be the whole or I? My body or my thing at all, or the whole world, my bed, my many, many belongings. But actually, the way to eradicate absolutely, completely, never to arise again, is to understand that actually there's no one from the very beginning, and begin to consider the word of the teaching that there is only one moment of citta arising. There cannot be two in the same moment at all. So one object which is there, the object of citta, which experience that only, and then gone. So the truth has to appear, reveal, show up as it is, so that panya is strong enough as the very sharp knife to cut off the some wrong titi, the michatiti, the sakayatiti. See, that's why it has to understand from the very beginning clear to let go the idea of self, that actually there is only one moment of citta, experiencing one object only, no matter what. So the body is just like the house. There are many, many things arising and falling away unknown all the time. So where's my body? If there is still my body, it's wrong understanding. There is the idea of self, my body. And the body is something, see, not just a moment of experiencing an object. That's why Panya develops more confident, more firm, more confidence of the truth that this is what Buddha enlightened, how deeply, how subtle it is, that he could penetrate the truth of that which is now at the body, that it's there, and then no more at all, as soon as no experience of it. And even while it's experienced so rapidly that it seems like it doesn't fall away at all. But the truth is that the arising and falling away is so very, very rapidly. This is the way to let go the idea of self from the beginning of understanding the word of the Buddha. Dhamma, see no one. Each has its own characteristic. What is real is a Dhamma, hardness, smell, and so on. It has to arise, otherwise it's not there at all. And when it has arisen, it's fallen away instantly, unknown. That's why avijja, ignorance, is there at that which is there when there is no understanding of it. And this is the subtle path because it is the fourth of the Ariya Satya, the Four Noble Truths. How deep it is. Only now, all Sankhara-Dhamma, Cetasikas, performing the function are known because they do not show up as they are one by one. And this is in the Tipitaka about a house from nothing, from the space, built up little by little, taking everything for a house, a body, or me.
And Loba as the house builder.
Yeah.
And Loba with Diti as the house builder or body builder with the idea that it's there.
And the
Thank
rupas that are taken for the body include the ones you mentioned, Anne, but there are other rupas too that are not sensed or receptors, obviously. So many different rupas with different conditions that are what we take for the body.
Can you give me some examples, Jonathan?
Well, the sensed or receptors or pasada rupas, as we said, are conditioned by karma.
Yes.
And other rupas are conditioned by nutriment, and other
Right.
rupas are conditioned by, can be conditioned by citta, for example,
Yes.
you know, when one smiles or blushes or something. So
Right.
many different kinds of rupas.
Yes. They're, yes, the seven, I guess they're called the coarse ones. Yes, I can see the body is built, as you say, by all of the ones, including the ones you just mentioned. Some of those maintain what we think of as the body. The nutriment, for instance.
Yes, there are rupas other than those that can be directly experienced.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. This explanation using the house, sorry, the space and the house or the body built up by all of these, the arising of these, I'm going to say receptors. I like that word. Yeah, and the objects impinging. Thank you. That's very helpful.
And the 5 pasada rupas and the 7 rupas that impinge are referred to as the 12 coarse rupas.
Yeah.
But the 7 commonly appear.
Yes, right. And the others are the more subtle rupas. Is that how we refer to them?
Well, those 12 are referred to as the coarse rupas.
Coarse ones.
And then
the
others
that Jonathan was speaking of, yeah.
The other 16
are more subtle.
Subtle rupas, yes. Masculinity, femininity, and so on. Right.
And we can't know those, is that right? They won't appear, they don't appear.
The rupa doesn't appear, but if there weren't those rupas, there wouldn't be any idea about man and woman. And
all these rupas, sometimes, and they have different names also, and I think Ajahn reality, which is the most important thing. Sometimes they're also known as the Sukkhama rupas, as opposed to the Olarika rupas, you know, Sapatiga, Apatiga. There's just many different Pali names. Sometimes they're virtually the same, referring to the same realities.
Right. Okay, thank you, Sundara.
Ajahn, earlier when we were talking about fighting for pleasant feeling and just bringing more dukkha, were you referring to dukkha as unpleasant feeling and dukkha, or were you referring to in the deepest sense how any clinging
Can we say all?
or realities? So, or both kinds, I think. Did you say all? Yes, both kinds, yes. The unpleasant the clinging brings the unpleasant feeling, but it also conditions life in samsara to go on and on. So leads to the arising of all realities, which are all dukkha.
That's why when there is ignorance or an object of clinging,
Yes.
upadana khanda.
And also when we were discussing, or you were referring to upadana khanda the other day, and you mentioned, this was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, you referred to two kinds of upadana khanda. First of all, there is any conditioned reality, which is the object of clinging. When it is the object of clinging, it's upadana khanda. And you also mentioned that the clinging itself is upadana khanda because it is the khanda that clings. So at the moment of clinging, it is upadana khanda. And there's actually the other meaning I was thinking of too, because I'm used to thinking of the two kinds as being upadana khanda, the khanda when it's the object of clinging, and those rupas conditioned by karma, the upadina khanda, because those rupas are conditioned by karma, which is conditioned by clinging.
I think that last time we are talking about the difference between the clinging and the upadana khanda. See,
Yes.
the clinging itself, when it is object of upadana, clinging itself is also upadana khanda, but the reality which is upadana is tanha only, loka only.
Yes, yes. So I think that the upadana khanda refers to the khanda, any conditioned reality, which may be clinging or any other, when it is the object of clinging. But the clinging itself is the upadana. Yes.
Yeah, the upadana itself is loba.
Loba. Yes, yes.
Sarah, what was that word you used? You said upadina. What was that? Can you?
It just means upadina, the rupas that are conditioned, that which has been conditioned by karma. So it's from upadana as well, but just the upadana. It is the upadana when it is clung to, upadina, just a different tense.
That word sounds very unfamiliar to me. How would you spell? May I ask? How would you spell that?
UP long A DINNA, meaning.
Okay, I've got you. Upadina. I've got you.
Upadina.
Double N. Okay, well, thank
long
you.
A and double N, upadina.
Yeah.
And so it's referring to those dhammas, especially rupas, which are conditioned by karma, and they are said to be upadina, object of clinging, because the karma has been conditioned by clinging. So it's another meaning of upadana. So there are those two meanings of upadana, as I understand, one referring to any khanda when it's the object of clinging, and those dhammas conditioned by clinging.
Right. I mean, okay. I'm having some difficulty trying to find the difference between those two as you speak about them.
The second one refers to the realities, but it's especially usually in the context of rupas that are conditioned by karma. I came across it in a sutta the other day. It was talking about any rupas conditioned by karma as upadina. It's quite common in the suttas.
And there's an entry for that term in Jnanatiloka's dictionary if you're interested in picking it up. It says it's synonymous with Kamaja Rupa.
Okay. What I'm curious, Sarah, what was that sutta called?
I would have to, I haven't got it in front, but there
are
quite a few references in quite a few suttas.
Okay, no. If you can let me pass that on to me sometime, I'd appreciate it.
Majjhima 28 is one.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Okay, thank you. Actually, you've just reminded me, Jonathan. Alan, is Alan there? Is Alan, do you know, is he there today?
He's not here now.
Oh, he's not here. Okay, that's all right. That's all right.
Yes, actually, that reminds me on a journal just at the end of Saturday, because it was a bit of a hurry, Alan was asking about the meaning of patana as base or foundation, as in satipatthana. So we know, and I mentioned the three meanings of satipatthana, and we know that any reality which is experience, the object of sati and panya, is patana, is the base for sati. Would you add a little more? Because Alan can listen afterwards.
Because I think that each moment there must be citta which experiences an object. But in a day, that object is not the object of understanding at that very moment when it is experienced. But the object cannot be changed at all. Object is still object, that which citta experiences. But when there's no understanding at all, it is not sati patthana. That's why we use sati is that which is aware of a reality. When it's kusala, the citta is kusala because of all wholesome cetasikas have to arise with that citta, including sati. So sati, which arises with ordinary kusala, dana, and sila, and so on, but it's different from direct awareness with direct understanding. So at moment of direct understanding with direct awareness, that object is patthana, object for the development of understanding of the truth of it.
Yes, that's what I thought. It's the foundation or the base in the sense of being the object of that understanding. A bit like when we talk about the three gotras, the gotra refers to the object of understanding. But when we talk about Upanishya Gotra, it's the object of the right intellectual understanding. Whereas when we talk about the patthana in Satipatthana, it is referring to the object of the direct understanding and direct awareness of that reality.
Actually, you've just reminded me there, and Sarah, because even though Alan is not there, it might be useful to share that, because he asked, was it last week, or I think it was last Monday actually, he was asking about the Wasetta Sutta in the Sutta Nipata, and Jonathan just reminded me when he mentioned the Majjhima Nikaya, that sutta, the Wasetta Sutta, is also in the Majjhima Nikaya. It's in Majjhima number 98. That's Alan's listening again. And also I noticed in that sutta, which is about behavior, essentially, that 28 of those verses that appear in the Wasetta Sutta are in the Dhammapada, in the Brahmana Vagga. So there's no less than 28 of those verses that appear in the Wasetta Sutta that Alan asked about also appear in the Dhammapada. So I thought that was significant because, again, I think essentially the Buddha's teachings relates to behavior, and correct understanding of what kusala behavior is truly about.
Sarah, we couldn't hear you just then.
I was just saying I'll tell Alan that his topics came up in the discussion just after 1 hour.
1 hour 10.
Kun Sarah, can we say that even the first Kojra, Upanishad Kojra, is the object of Buddha as well? Because
Yes.
all three are the object of the Buddha.
Yes, definitely. And without the wise considering of the Gotra, the Upanishad Gotra, there couldn't be any development of Satipatthana or any realization. So it has to begin with the wise consideration of the Buddha's subject matter.
And even moment of experiencing directly of that object with understanding, even it has fallen away, it's still accumulated to araka, protect one from wrong, our akusla, like lying and so on. And when it becomes very frequent, it is upanipanda kojra.
Yes. So in that sense, when it is direct understanding, when it is Upanibandha Gochara, in that
And excuse me, and Upanibandha does not have to be long all day or that, but at any time when it's there, because it doesn't forget, so it's bind up one to think about it, depending on conditions, but never forget the value of it.
the other day, another point that actually came up, I was interested to hear you mention. Usually we just discuss the Parinyas as the wise, the understanding in between the Vipassana jnanas, the not forgetting and the applying of understanding to different objects and so on. But the other day you were using the Parinya, the word Parinya as arising in between even moments of wise considering or understanding that was not yet Vipassana jnana. I don't know if you remember. Do you sometimes use Parinya, or do the texts use Parinya not just after Vipassana jnana, but even before that?
No, not before that.
Maybe
Because you see that there are different degrees of understanding. Right now we are talking about the arising and falling away of realities, but it's not direct understanding, direct experiencing yet. That's why it's intellectual. It cannot be parinya.
No, that's what I thought. I think it was just a slip or something that got mixed up, because the Parinya can only be after the arising of Vipassana.
Yeah.
I think so.
Because how can that after Vipassana realize the truth and apply it by conditions, not forgetting? So sati is that which does not forget, depending on forget the word that we heard about Dhamma at level of intellectual understanding, Suttamaya Panya. See, there are many levels of understanding, and it's meant by many levels. The truth appears from the very beginning, on and on and on and on, when it's vipassana jnana. But when it's not yet, how can there be the apply of such experience which has experienced before to whatever it's now appearing or thinking about that? Because once you have seen that, you know that it's just like that at any time when there is sati. So it is prajna, which has to apply in daily life so that the letting go is more and more and more enough to let go, to understand more about the truth of it clearer. to be higher vipassana jnana. That's why the Prinya has to be after vipassana jnana.
Perhaps I misheard, or perhaps something got mixed up, but it's good to clarify. That's what I thought. It has to be has to be between different vipassana jnanas. Yes, and
because for those who
Dhamma
have experience can have Prinya in a day to apply Sappha Prinya. Even when it's not applied yet, how can Panya develop more to let go whatever is there now, little by little, before they can be more precise and higher on this level of understanding and letting go, little by little, even that, to higher and higher, up and up, to let go, absolutely, when it is the Makajita.
Tanajan, just on, excuse me, just on the subject, with regards to the Dhammacakka Sutta, at the stage of Kitchenyana, in the Pali, it mentions the word paranyeya, which is roughly translated, or because it's referring to the Prinyas near there. This is what should be, or this is what can be developed. It's sometimes called, this is what can be or should be developed. Paranyeya, in relationship to Kitchenyana. So how would you understand that word there as it is used in the Dhammacakka Sutta at that second stage, at the Kitchenyana stage, paranyeya?
That's why we have to talk in details about each word. For example, what we are talking about is by way of Gitta Jnana, Satyajnana, and so on, or talk about the Prinya and Panya. See, so now are we talking about the Gitta Jnana, Katyayana?
Well, I'm talking, wanting to understand a little bit more about Kitchenyana, because in relation to Kitchenyana, we have the word in the Pali paranyeya, which is obviously from the word parinya. So that word paranyeya would translate as that this is what should be done, or this is what could be done in relationship to the development of the path.
Because usually in the commentaries or sutta, just one word lead to higher, 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 or deeper and deeper understanding from just one word. So we have to know what is there at different stage. For example, Satyajnana, what is it? Satyajnana, without Satyajnana, can there be Kitayana? Can there be Katyayana? See,
No,
different levels of understanding. So what is the Panya at level of Satyajnana? What is Panya at level of Kitayana? And what is Panya at level of Katyayana? And after that, they can be Sappha Parinya or Prinya after Vipassana Jnana. See? Different steps.
So could
So
we
let's
say
talk about Satyajnana before there can be Kitayana. What is that?
so
Satyajnana. Not the word, but the truth.
So Sundara Kitchenyana, Satyajnana is the wise considering, the firm wise considering.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that, Sarah.
And the Kitchenyana is the what is to be realized, what is to be understood.
Yeah,
so
yes, I'm aware of that, Sarah.
So
I'm aware of that, Sarah.
Yes, so at Kitchenyana, it's referring to the Parinya after Katanyana.
Hold it, please, just a moment, Sarah. That's my question, because I'm saying that's what it says in the Dhammacakka Sutta. It uses the word continually, paranyeya, in relationship to Kitchenyana. I understand what Kitchenyana means. This is the job to be done.
Right, so it's not yet done. So because only when it's Katanyana is it the
I'm aware of that too, Sarah.
That's
another word again, which means accomplished. Kata, word t at the end means accomplished, or it's done.
So that's why Kitchenyana is talking about the task to be done, parinyeya,
Yeah, no,
the parinyas to be realized after katanyana. When it's katanyana, then that is when the sapaparinya develop.
No, I think
between
you're
the stage of
misunderstanding.
insight.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying there. I understand. I understand well what those different Sachanyana, Kitchenyana, Katanyana mean. I'm pretty familiar with those, but all I'm saying is that because you seem to be alluding to the fact that parinyas happen after realization, but it seems within the sutta, because that word there is used, parinyaya is direct derivative of the word parinya, and it's talking about this is what should be accomplished, or no, sorry, not accomplished. This is what should be
realized.
No, that's at the end, Sarah. Realized, that's the end. This is what, in that middle stage, Kitchenyana stage, it talks about parinyaya means this is like in word karaniya. Parinyaya refers to that which should be a function of chitta to enable the katanyana, the accomplishment. So it seems that the parinya, at whatever level it might be, very beginning, is referred to right at the beginning of development, not necessarily a knowledge that is attained later on. So that's where my question essentially lay.
I don't think so. I think the way that I read it, it's referring to what is to be understood and known, because at Katanyana, only then is it directly realized. So the first parinya, that which is known, nata parinya, develops after the first vipassana jnana, and then kirana parinya between the second and fifth, and then pahana parinya later, between the stages of insight. So at Kitchenyana, it's referring to the function to be developed, the understanding and realization to be known after the Katanyana, after the development of Vipassana Jnana.
Your question's a translation one, right, Sundara?
Yes, essentially, but I do think
there may not be an appropriate term to be used, because they're different. As long as we understand they are different degrees of
from what I'm inferring from what Ajahn has said is that, and she mentioned this earlier on too, I'm just trying to remember exactly what it was, but she mentioned this earlier on with regards to Upanibandha, which relates to the firm understanding, or it's sometimes translated as anchoring, or the firm binding, if you like, to the reality that appears. So going back, and from what Ajahn was talking about with relationship to Upanibandha, this can have many different levels also, and that would make sense to me. There's many different levels of firm anchoring and more perhaps coarser or lesser degrees of Upanibandha, if you like. And I'm also seeing that with the Pali word, which is mentioned in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, that parinyaya, which is directly linked to the word parinya, would obviously relate to many different levels of parinya, not just those higher levels that have been referred to by Tamajan, Nata, from Nata Parinya, Kirana Parinya, and the highest one, which I'm forgetting at the moment. So what I'm picking up is that there are different levels of Pahana Parinya was the last one I was trying to think of before, but it doesn't really matter. There are many different levels of Parinya even before Jnata Parinya, and I suspect that is so. Would that be so, Tanajan, that there seem to be many different levels of Parinya even before Jnata Parinya?
I think that we better talk about the word from the very beginning, each one, to understand it. How far will it continue to? For example, 12 round, what does it mean of Satya?
Means the
Of
12 rounds. Three for each noble truth.
Okay, what is the first one?
Well, the first one, we've spoken about this many times. There was an extensive question earlier on asked about Ellen, so we can say the first one is Satchanyana, which there is this truth. Say we're talking about the first noble truth, Satchanyana, the truth of dukkha that appears, as you would remind us, that appears at this particular moment.
And it's not just repeating the word, but what about the understanding? Is that panya, understanding of the first Arya Satya? There
would be
the first one. We have to begin from the very first one. Go on.
Right.
So what is that? Which is the first of the 12?
The first of the 12 is that this is the truth, Satchanyana. This is the truth of dukkha Arya Satya. This is the understanding of dukkha Arya Satya, and so on. And then in the second stage is this truth should be known. Paranyeya, this is the word that's used in the Pali. Paranyeya, and this truth should be known. And finally, this truth has been realized. The truth of dukkha.
That's the word, but what about the reality? Not the word.
Yes, I understand it, John.
The
Yes,
word
I understand.
The word, but the word implies the meaning of reality. So without understanding, hearing, and considering, to have confidence of the first truth, can that be the first of the 12?
Well, we can say that the beginning state, well, we know if it's just words and thinking, then there's not necessarily any understanding at all. But if that knowledge is not clear, is not well grounded, parayatti, then there will not be the firmer understanding developed, which is relationship, which is kitchanyana.
Yeah, and pariyatti is the understanding, not the word.
True.
Okay, so what about the understanding of the first truth? Some people think that dukkha, painful feeling, is dukkha, but that's not the first noble truth.
No.
What is the first noble truth that one has confidence on it enough to condition the second?
Well, we could, I understand it. I think I understand what you're saying.
It's not just the word, but it's now to understand what we take from me, how much understanding, how much considering, how much subtle understanding, and so on. That's why even the word, the first Arya Satya, Dukkha Arya Satya, it has to be so very well understanding from hearing, considering, intellectually. Otherwise, there's no condition for the second Gitayana. And not just only the first, understanding all four. The first step, intellectually understanding what is the truth, what is the dukkha.
So can we say, Tanajan, that even though each of the four noble truths have those three different levels, which make 12, obviously, can we say that within those three different levels of each truth, that there are many different levels as well?
I cannot hear very well because it's not smooth.
Okay, I'll try and repeat that question again. All right, so we know that each noble truth has three cycles, which obviously when you multiply it by 4 for each of the noble truths, you get 12.
What about the understanding? See, each word of the Buddha conveys the truth of whatever is now appearing, reality as itself. When the I has to die, is that the first Arya Satya? No understanding of that which is now as not self, nama or rupa at all?
No, it's not.
So it depends on understanding at what level, about what. of the Four Noble Truths, about the first, or about the second, or about the third, and about the past, the fourth. It has to be all well understood, to be basic for the base for understanding, not go away from the truth,
I
not being swayed by one's
understand,
own
Jan.
thinking. So even
I
right
think I
now,
understand that. Mhm.
that which is now appearing is not there anymore. See, does it let go? Then just thinking about the word that it's not there by just only thinking. But the truth is that even that which is now appearing, it's not known as it is yet because it appears like permanent thing. That's why there must be the understanding of the anicca lakshana, of the noble truth of whatever is there, citta and cetasika. But it's not direct understanding of that which is now appearing yet. For example, hardness right now, just hardness is there, and that which experiences hardness is there. No understanding. And how come to have a little understanding of that which is now appearing? It is not that level of the first intellectual understanding. It has to be Gitayana. That's why there are three level of understanding: intellectual, and then the direct awareness, and then the experiencing directly the truth. See, but there must be so well condition, confidence, very well enough not to go away from this moment, which is there, which hasn't been the object of understanding yet, to become the object of understanding. That is the understanding of the second truth, of the noble truth. Because without that direct understanding of that which is now appearing, which hasn't been known before, not been the object of awareness before, to be, that is the second, to understand the first noble truth. That's why the four with noble truth with the three level of understanding becomes 12 rounds.
Yeah.
Can it bring a little more to the question we are talking about?
Yes,
Because
I
talking
mean,
about is about Prinya, right?
Parinya, yes, which relates to in the sutta, Parinya, the word Parinya is used in relationship to the second level of each of those four noble truths. The word Parinya, that's the Pali word that's used, so that it's relating to Kitchanyana. So what I'm understanding so far from what you have said, Ajahn, this is what I'm inferring from what you have said, is that each of these different levels also have many different levels also. Do you
Okay,
understand what I'm saying?
so please talk sentence by sentence. The first one, what did you say
All
about
right.
Prinya?
All right. So the word parinya or parinya, as it's used in the Pali, the word iya at the end usually means it's optative, or it means it can be done, or it should be done, or there's the opportunity to do that. You know, you can
Okay,
translate.
see, the question is when. When there's no understanding, intellectual understanding at all, or when there is no direct understanding, no experiencing directly of the truth. So how can there be more of that Parinya?
Well, there
Because
can be.
the intellectual understanding cannot be Parinya. See, and the
No,
second,
no, no.
the direct awareness and understanding which begins hasn't been developed enough yet to experience the truth. Can that be Parinya?
Well, the question you're asking, it seemed to me, Ajahn, is a rhetorical one, meaning no, it can't be at that stage. But what I'm saying is that from the sutta, and I know that's only words, that's only just reading.
Okay, please even is there. What about the understanding of the difference? Buddha didn't teach only about intellectual understanding or direct
No.
understanding with direct awareness satipatthana at the beginning, but it has to be more than that. And who listen to his word, the five Panchvaki, see how much understanding is there. And after that, they become enlightened. See how come when there's no understanding of directly that even vipassana has arisen and fallen away, but the understanding of that is not forgotten at all. That's why when it applies that in daily life to understand more and more, otherwise they cannot be let go to other higher level. How can there be? It's only the two vipassana or the three, whatever, can lead to letting go whatever in life, because it's not just only once and it's not just only one reality, but everything that hasn't been object yet can be applied to that which has been experienced directly, to let go little by little, little by little, little by little, thinking about how long it has been accumulated years and years ago, and only such that parinya or only such that vipassana jhana, that level, cannot let go what is there in life now, from now on, each moment. See, that's why that has to be applied by conditions to understand better and better and letting go little by little. For example, we know that the reality is not permanent. The world is not permanent. It's breaking world. But it doesn't matter at all. We just live. We just like to live. We just like this and that after hearing this. So that's not the path. The path is that it has to really experience stage by stage and what can be conditioned for higher understanding, to really let go that which is used to take for something all the time into nothing at all. Only that can be firstly eradicated, but still there are conditions for other unwholesome realities, because it's only the panya of Satipana, the one who just begin to be the Arya Pukala, see, the Sankaratana. So it is long time, it's long way, so much as it has been long enough from eons and eons to not understanding, to begin to be understanding, stage by stage. So when we read Tipitaka, there can be misunderstanding because we take this so very simple. It can be parinya. It's not parinya yet because it has to have 4 rounds, 3 rounds of Four Noble Truths.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
thinking
Okay.
about whether this is parinya or not at this moment, it's not. It cannot be. And the second one, the moment of direct awareness and direct understanding, not clear yet because the reality does not show up to the panya, which is so keen enough to realize it as just new world, different from the world we live just right now, because it's just only one reality at a time, nothing there at all, to prove that actually there cannot be many things arise together, just one at a time, one citta at a time. That which show up is only one at a time. See? To see that it cannot be taken for what we take as table and thing and whatever at all. And that is not enough. It has to apply. And that is parinya. Otherwise, the intellect understanding, can it be parinya? At moment of direct awareness understanding, just only that, not clear, can it be parinya? And when it is the vipassana jhana, by then, with application of panya, by conditions to understand more in daily life, very natural, it can condition higher understanding to appear just like the first vipassana jhana. It does not appear yet. So no one can imagine what is taken, what is the real vipassana jhana is. It's not just like one try to think about it. because we can think about that which we used to think about. I am thinking, see, what is there? Feeling and sanya and other cetasikas are there unknown, are taken for I deeply all the time. That's why we have to consider each word carefully. The intellectual understanding, Suttamaya Panya, is only Suttamaya Panya. Not enough. There must be Chintamaya Panya, like we are talking now. See, can be conditioned for thinking over it again and again to understand how deep reality right now is, how subtle. The subtlety, the profoundness of reality is not far away. It's now, because it does not appear as it is. No right understanding enough to dig it up or to penetrate to the truth, which it now arises in false way. So that cannot be Parinya when it's not that degree.
No, thank you for that, Ajahn. I understand what you're saying. I think I do. I guess I'm curious as much as anything else as to why in the Pali, in the Sutta, they use that word parinyaya.
Okay. When there is such understanding of the different degrees, we can understand what is meant.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that, Ajahn. No, that's probably enough, certainly for the time being. Thank you so much, Ajahn.
So just only the word is not enough. The understanding over and over again, reconsider and see that there must be difference between each word of the Buddha.
Yeah, okay. No, that's much clearer, Ajahn. I appreciate your time and your patience here with me. Thank you.
That's why we consider just one word more and more, deeper and deeper, so it can become clearer and clearer.
So perhaps now I can interpret that second level or the Kitchenyana level as this is what can be, or this is what should be, although I'm hesitant to use those words should or even can. But and sometimes I think the Pali is very difficult to translate. Parinyaya now I'll perhaps translate as this is the understanding that needs to be developed in order for you in order for the understanding of this truth of Kitchenyana to be known, or something along those lines.
And depending on what level too.
Oh yes,
it's impossible. It has to be after Vipassana Jnana only, because it's so clear, but it has to apply to whatever is there now, which is not Vipassana Jnana, because Vipassana Jnana does not always arise in a day.
No.
Because it depends on conditions. How can
No.
it be only when Panya is sharp enough from study and considering and having experience directly, and so on and on and on. See? Many conditions for different levels of understanding.
Yes, that's clearer to me, Tanajan. It's a little bit more clearer to me now why that word parinyaya is used, because we can say that's the as you have mentioned before to us, that refers to Vipassana Jnana. So and we know that, as you've mentioned to us, that there are many different levels of Vipassana Jnana, and these are the truths that ought to be developed, or should be being developed as we speak, ideally. Okay, that's much clearer to me, Tanajan.
And when it's panya, it always let go, depending on how much and how sharp it's there.
I would be interested.
When it's Kitchenyana, it is because it is the understanding directly of the Four Noble Truths, the understanding directly of realities. So when there is the direct understanding, of what is dukkha now, for example, of what is seeing now, what is hearing now. There is the understanding of the function of what the task to be done is, what is to be realized later when it is the vipassana, the direct realization of the truth and the understanding that has to be developed. But it's not that level yet, but it's the beginning, because it's the understanding directly of the realities, the development of satipatthana, understanding of the task to be performed.
No, thanks for that, Sarah.
I have a question about that development of panya. So we've been talking about vipassana jnanas. So at the stage when, as panya develops, and say there is a vipassana jnana, so but panya still has to develop on and on. Can we say that it at sometimes when there is panya, it's not at the level of vipassana jnana? It just is. It just sometimes develop. It's strong at sometimes, and other times it's just as it's developing. It's sometimes strong and sometimes not so strong. Just like if you're filling up a cup just a little bit at a time or a lot at a time. I'm not sure if that question is clear, but how does it develop? I mean, I hear Ajahn say little by little by little. So I'm presuming that it is just that.
Just like now, when there's firm intellectual understanding, it doesn't mean it's like that at every moment. Most of the time there's attachment or aversion or wrong view or just not firm understanding. And when it's direct understanding, when it's satipatthana, other moments just wise considering or attachment, like now, normal, and so on. So the same when it's after vipassana jnana, when it's parinya, there's the right understanding of realities that have been realized, but other moments just wise considering or thinking, but less and less doubt, less and less misunderstanding. That's all.
Okay, that wise considering, yes, that's good. Thank you, Sarah.
So whatever the level of understanding that has been developed, the panya that actually arises can be weak or strong, depending.
Thank you. Well, I have, if no one else has got any comment, I have another question. As we talk about, there's a lot of emphasis put on the development of panya, but when panya is developing, there's the paramis are developing also. Is that correct?
Yes, they develop with panya.
With panya.
Yes, the kanti, the patience that Sundara mentioned, the satya jnana, the satya parami, the adhitthana parami, they all have to develop together with panya.
So in this respect, it's like the detachment. So when panya is developed, there is the detachment, and there is also the development of the paramis, because they only develop with panya.
Yes, sometimes I forget about them, intellectually, this lot of discussion of panya, but yes, it has to have the paramis along with it. There are other realities arising along with the panya.
Well, I suppose depending on the panya that arises and what is its object, it may or may not be one of the particular paramis at that moment, but I guess it's always the parami of panya anyway.
And nekama, for example, the letting go of clinging to the idea, the story, the word, the letting go of clinging at that moment of understanding. So there's always the development of nekama parami with understanding.
Actually, just on that subject of nekkhamma, literally means no karma, literally no sensuality. So there is detachment from the sensual world or any type of akusala at the mental level also. So it really just means detachment, a simple translation of nekkhamma. There's no clinging on to whatever appears, nama or rupa.
So the little more letting go with understanding. This nekama whenever there's any kusala, but when it's parami, it's the letting go with understanding, letting go of the wrong idea of self little by little. We can't hear you.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, certainly it is. But I was just looking at it recently. That word nekkhamma literally means no karma, and that I'm alluding to the word karma and the word sensuality there. So there was no attachment to the sensual world at that particular moment, or any world for that matter, or any world for that matter. But as you have spoken to Sarah, yes, it relates to, obviously, in this sense, when we talk about the parami, then you we're talking about satipatthana, because even at the moments of kusala, there won't be any moments of attachment. But when we're talking about nekkhamma, at the level of satipatthana anyway, we're talking about detachment at that higher level.
Or even now at moments of pariyati understanding, it is the nekama is developing with that understanding to gradually begin getting used to the idea that there are just different realities now, that the truths are at this moment.
Thank you. Just a thing on that nekama. So that when it said, it must be detachment from the start. So is that similar nekama, or is nekama actually a parami?
I think that's both the same thing. What the question you've asked, in a way, Azita. I mean, the literal meaning is no clinging, literally, to the sensual world, because it's talking about no. That's why I think it's really important for pronunciation, because I'm not talking about kamma, as the Thais use the word gum, or gamma, as often they would say in Pali, but the word is karma, which is, you're probably familiar with the Kama Sutra. We're talking about the world of carnality, actually. So it's parami when it's when there is moments of no nekkhamma at the level of satipatthana. That's when there is true nekkhamma, because there is understanding as well as obviously this, which is sobhana, which is a kusala kusala chitta. So making this rather convoluted answer, but yes, a simple answer to your question would be yes, it is parami when it's satipatthana. It has to be when there is panya involved. There's simply that. Yes. Is that a little bit clearer, or did I make it more confusing for you?
It's sometimes when you give answers, I get confused because it's very wordy. But I think I understand what you're saying.
Uh-huh. Okay. We'll leave it at that then. To ask Tanajan, what do you think about that, Tanajan? Perhaps you could ask that question again, Sarah, and ask Tanajan, because she's a much better.
It was
She would
question.
answer it very precisely.
I think
I'm sure.
Azita's question, and I think the point is we don't have to pinpoint, because when there's understanding and there is detachment, of course there's aloba, cetasika there, and upeka, equanimity, nekama. So we don't have to point to this or that. Otherwise, clinging is there again. So just to know that all the paramis develop with understanding is enough.
Yeah. Yes, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
I think it's almost time, so I don't know if Ajahn has any last words she'd like to add, or anyone else.
Yeah, I would like to have more understanding or clear understanding about parami. What is it? Otherwise, we cannot know whether now it's parami or not. We just use the word parami, but whether it is or not. So, what is really parami? So, shall we talk next time about parami again?
Yeah, that
Yes,
sounds.
Ajahn, I think that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Ajahn. Sawadika.
Sawadee
Have a topic for next
ka.
time.
Thank you very much,
Everyone.
Tanajan. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, Lucas. Good that you could listen. And good
Bye-bye. Yes. See you next
Yeah.
time, guys.
Yeah,
everyone.
good for you,
Sawadika,
Lucas. Appreciate your kusala and everyone else.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks all.